10 years ago, Google launched Project Fi. It was a cell provider that was essentially for their own phones, and then a couple years later became available to the public. And shortly thereafter became supported on iPhones and tablets, and Google Fi has been a service provider for quite a while now. Now, I've made a few videos quite a while back talking about Google Fi. Initially, Google Fi was really forward thinking as far as wireless plans go, with options that were pretty inexpensive and just charged you for the data that you use. Of course, now they also have plans that are unlimited, like the traditional unlimited that we have here in the United States. But there are still some unique things about Google Fi that make it a potential money-saving option for those of you that want a good wireless service for your iOS or your Android device. So I wanted to talk about my experience having used Google Fi over the last 10 years. Now, Google Fi hasn't always been my primary service provider. Back then it was AT&T, and a few years later it became Verizon, and I've dabbled a little bit with T-Mobile, but I've always had a device or two that's on Google Fi. I have one of my parents on Google Fi, and a handful of my tablets are also on Google Fi as well. So first of all, what type of devices does Google Fi support? Well, we're moving into a time where we don't have SIM cards in our phones anymore. Most of the new phones are now coming without SIM card slots. Some Android phones still come with them, but we're certainly moving towards a SIM-less future, and Google Fi supports that, whether you're on an iPhone or you're on an Android. Of course, setting that up on an iPhone is a little bit more challenging. You have to go through a little bit more of a process in order to do that. On an Android phone, all you need to do is download the Google Fi app and sign in, and through the setup process that only takes a few minutes, it will activate your phone and you'll be good to go. One of the things that's always been attractive to me with a Google Fi plan is that you can add a tablet or a data device at no additional charge. That means that if you only have one phone and it might be like a $45 unlimited plan on Google Fi, you can also add a tablet at no additional cost, and it also gets access to that unlimited data. That's always been a huge saver for me, because a lot of times, like with Verizon or T-Mobile, you want to add on a tablet, well, it's going to be a minimum of $10, sometimes as much as $40 or $45, depending on how much data you need. Google Fi also works really well with a lot of the smartwatches that are available on the Android side. Unfortunately, the Apple Watch is not supported for Google Fi. I wish that it was, because it would be great to get service on the Apple Watch for free without having to pay extra for it like you do with most of the other carriers. If you are on the Android side, one huge added benefit of Google Fi is the massive promotions that they offer. For example, the Samsung Galaxy Fold 7 just came out, and that's a $2,000 phone. But Google Fi was offering the phone at $1,200, so that's an $800 savings, and all you have to do is keep the phone active for 90 days. None of that 2-year agreement nonsense. And if you're new to Google Fi, you could get up to $1,000 by signing up for new service and that phone. That's an extreme example, of course, but I've saved hundreds and hundreds of dollars on phones throughout the year. I purchase all of my phones. I don't get them from the manufacturer. So when I purchase a new Pixel phone, I get it at a steep discount because of the promotions that they're offering. When I buy my new Galaxy S model, I utilize their promotions because they're so massive. Now, Google Fi uses T-Mobile and US Cellular towers. So for the majority of us in the US, anywhere where there is good T-Mobile coverage, you're going to have excellent Google Fi coverage as well. Now, depending on your Google Fi plan, they actually have some really good benefits for those of you that travel and make a lot of international calls. I'll make sure to link to Google Fi down below so that you can check all of that stuff out. Now, I did say that I use other cell providers. That's because where I live, Verizon has the superior service, so I utilize Verizon for my main line. But on my iPhone, I utilize dual SIM, so I have two numbers coming into my phone. One is Verizon and the other is Google Fi. And what's great about that is if I do travel to somewhere where Verizon isn't strong, chances are T-Mobile or Google Fi is going to have a strong signal, so I'm never left without coverage. And that's one of the reasons that I stuck with Google Fi for so long. Because it's not my primary line, I've been able to utilize their flexible plan, which with a couple of lines on my account means that I'm paying about $15 per line, and I'm only paying for data. And if I'm not utilizing data on the device because I'm using my other line as the primary, then I'm getting a secondary line with excellent service at little to no cost. And it's a great backup should I find myself needing service in an area or my primary line doesn't have coverage. Now, you might not need 2 lines, but if you are somewhere where T-Mobile is really strong, it makes sense to compare T-Mobile pricing to Google Fi, and I guarantee you that Google Fi is going to end up being cheaper, especially if you end up pairing your Google Fi service not only with a phone, but also a tablet or a smartwatch. So one thing that might also be a concern to some people is that Google Fi is 100% online. There's no Google Fi stores that you can walk into. And there's been a handful of times that I have needed support for things like number porting or making a change to my account, and their online chat support is pretty fast, and they also have a number that you can call and reach customer service, and I've never been on hold for really long, so it's actually been a pretty decent experience, all things considered. So would I recommend Google Fi in 2025, considering that it doesn't seem like they have done a whole lot of innovating as far as their platform goes? I would highly recommend it if you're in an area that has good T-Mobile coverage. If there's good T-Mobile coverage, there's going to be good Google Fi coverage, and if you're on an Android device, it makes a lot of sense. If you're on an Apple device, might be a little bit more challenging, because as Apple has definitely moved into a SIM cardless era with their devices, it's harder to activate Apple devices. The iPhone, it's possible, but tablets such as this iPad mini 7th gen that does not have a SIM card, I can't use Google Fi on this. I could on earlier versions of the iPad, and there are still some iPads that you can get that have a SIM card slot, but it's definitely more challenging now to activate Google Fi on SIM-less devices. And so if you're in the Android camp, Google Fi is an excellent choice. Doesn't matter what Android phone you have, whether it has a SIM card tray or not, Google Fi is a great option. If you're over on the iOS camp, maybe a little bit more challenging depending on the age of your devices. If all of your devices have SIM cards, they will send you a SIM card for free. You pop it in, log in, boom, boom, you're activated and ready to go. If you're on a newer iPhone that is SIM-less, you can use Google Fi. But if you have a newer tablet that doesn't have a SIM card tray or an Apple Watch, those are devices that aren't going to work with Google Fi, which is very unfortunate. I hope that they do decide to bring that type of support or figure out how to bring that support to Google Fi, because I would definitely move a lot more devices over to Google Fi if that was possible. So I do highly recommend Google Fi because it's a great service. The pricing is good. The discounts that they provide on new devices are better than what you can get in stores without having to sign on to long-term contracts. And you're essentially getting T-Mobile service at a better rate. And it's especially useful for those that use very little data, which is why I have my mom's Android phone on Google Fi. She doesn't even use a gig a month. And so for her phone plan, it's like $17 and some change every single month. And she gets essentially T-Mobile service through Google Fi. She has data when she needs it, but most of the time she's connected to Wi-Fi, not utilizing a whole lot of data. So if you have any questions about Google Fi, ask them down in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer based on my own personal experience. Like I said before, I've got a link to Google Fi in the description. Click on that to check out more information. And if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you back soon. Take care.